What's your favorite horror movie? There are so many different ones to pick, but I think my personal favorite is The Shining. It is a famous book made into a even more famous movie by Stephen King. But have you ever wondered how he got his infamous Outlook Hotel? It has to come from somewhere, right? These are some of the questions that I had brewing in my head, and I just had to find out the wacky history behind it. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Sydney, and if you are new here, this is just a place where we talk about true crime, spooky, scary stories, basically anything I got going on in my noggin. We sit down and we talk about it. And like I said in the intro, today we're going to be talking about the Stanley Hotel. So, without further ado, let's get into it. I'm super excited. So our story today starts with a man named Freeland Oscar Stanley. Now Stanley was an inventor, and he was actually the co-owner of Stanley Motors, which specialized in motorized vehicles up until the 1920s. So this guy was a pretty big deal. Unfortunately, in 1903, Stanley was actually diagnosed with tuberculosis, and it was getting worse day by day. The doctors told him that he didn't have very long to live, and that maybe moving to a place with fresh air, more nature scenery, might actually improve his condition. So Stanley and his wife Flora picked up and moved from Maine, which Stanley was very used to. He was born there, raised there. They picked up everything they had and they decided to move to Colorado. They traveled around a bit trying to find the perfect spot, and they decided on a place called Estes Park, Colorado. And they got a cabin there for the summer, and Stanley's condition actually improved quite a bit, which was somewhat of a miracle. The couple decided to build a summer house in Estes Park that they named Rockside. The construction was finished in 1904, and Stanley and Flora loved Estes Park. They loved being right next to the Rocky Mountains, all the beautiful scenery. They loved it. But Stanley wasn't satisfied. He was forever an entrepreneur, so he decided that he loved Estes Park so much that he wanted to make it a tourist destination. So with that idea in mind, the construction of the Stanley Hotel started in 1907. Stanley purchased 160 acres of land from a man named Lord Duravan. He was an Irish earl, so that's where the Lord comes from. But this hotel had literally everything that you could ever want. There was a manor house, a concert hall, and a carriage house, a 9-hole golf course, bowling, horseback riding, billiards, and there were even places for formal dinners, concerts, parties, etc. There was literally everything in this one hotel. It was crazy. I thought this was very sweet. Stanley actually brought in a Steinway piano for Flora because she was a pianist and she loved to play the piano. Find yourself a man like that. Somebody that will buy you a grand piano just because he knows that you like it. There was also a very extensive underground tunnel system for the servants to walk around so that they weren't seen by guests. So, as you might have already guessed, this hotel was really for people like Stanley, the upper class and the wealthy. This place was extremely advanced for its time. It had electricity, running water, steam laundry, telephones, and it even had a fully electric kitchen. And of course, since the man who basically created steam-run motor vehicles was the inventor of the hotel, the transportation to and from the Stanley Hotel was very bougie, okay? Stanley created a specialty 12-seat steam-run car that would transport the guests to and from the hotel on a road that Stanley himself built. This was a hotel that was kind of far out into the country so that you could see all the beautiful nature, and so Stanley had to build a road to get guests to and from his property. So the hotel officially opened in 1907 and served as a summer-only resort. And obviously, right when it opened, people really wanted to visit. So the Stanley Hotel had politicians, celebrities, the higher class, wealthy people. It was very common to see them in and out of the Stanley on a regular basis. So with a hotel that has a very rich history and people coming in and out at all times, there's gonna be some spooky things happening. There's gonna be some spirits lingering around, and we're gonna talk about them. Some of the characteristics that have been noted within the Stanley Hotel are hearing children running up and down the halls, hearing eerie laughter, seeing shadows and flickering lights, just to name a few. While there's not a clear explanation as to why this hotel is so haunted, there have been a few stories throughout the years that lead people to believe this might be why the Stanley is so haunted. Shortly after the hotel's opening in 1911, there was a gas explosion within the hotel. This explosion injured a servant named Elizabeth Wilson, as well as 7 other servants. The second floor and its surrounding areas that were destroyed were quickly fixed, and Elizabeth thankfully recovered from her injuries and continued to work at the Stanley Hotel. However, after Elizabeth passed, guests began to notice some strange things happening on the second floor of the building, specifically near and in room 217. After Elizabeth passed, though, guests started to notice an apparition that would walk through the doors and through the walls on the second floor. People just assumed that it was Elizabeth going back to work. Additionally, guests think that Elizabeth's spirit doesn't like unmarried couples, and here's why. Certain guests stated that when they were sleeping in one bed and they were unmarried, that they would feel like a cold presence in between them in bed, which is very scary, but also, like, Elizabeth's just making sure that nothing weird's happening. Elizabeth, no, not in her hotel. At some point, guests even noted that they would wake up in the morning and their bags were neatly packed and put by the door for them. So she's just helping out. She's just doing her part. Another apparition that's usually seen within the Stanley Hotel is Stanley himself. Now, the inventor lived a very long life. He died in the 1940s, but guests say that they can sometimes see him at the front desk or in the billiards room. Others say that they can sometimes hear the Steinway grand piano being played in the ballroom, and people assume that this is Flora just enjoying her piano that her husband got for her. The most active floor in the Stanley Hotel is thought to be the 4th level. For example, people have reported seeing Lord Duravan in room 407. Some say that they can see the Earl standing in the corner, or when they look up from the outside of the hotel, they can see him standing in the window just kind of looking over the Stanley Hotel grounds, which I think is kind of wholehearted. It's kind of sweet. I like it. On the other hand, though, something a little less cute is room 418, and this room is known as the Demon Room. This comforting and really fitting nickname came from the fact that a woman claimed to have been possessed by a demon while she was staying overnight in room 418. Well, some people think that it's geographically located in a place that makes it super haunted. I think that the Stanley Hotel is just haunted because there's so much history crammed into such a tiny building, really, when you think about it. I think that when you have so many people coming in and out of a place with different lives, I think that it's pretty obvious that there's going to be some sort of haunting, some sort of spirits left lingering within the hotel. In 1974, famous author Stephen King and his wife Tabitha pulled up to the Stanley Hotel and they decided that they wanted to spend the night there. It was actually the last day of the season, so many people were packing up to go, but the Kings were just checking in. The couple were staying in room 217, and that night, Stephen had a dream that his son was being chased down one of the long hallways of the Stanley Hotel, and he was being chased by a fire hose that had come to life. This nightmare violently woke up Stephen King, and that kind of sparked the inspiration for the book The Shining. I think that his dream must have been very vivid because the way that my sources were kind of explaining it, it sounded like he kind of woke up and he had sort of an outline of how he wanted The Shining to go. So I don't know if the dream just like kind of kickstarted that for him or if the dream involved other things, but basically we just know that the Stanley Hotel and that environment kind of helped him cultivate his novel, which is crazy. So obviously, once The Shining came out and people found out that it was based on this real-life hotel, the popularity of the Stanley Hotel skyrocketed. In 1983, the Stanley Hotel began to be open year-round, and it still continues to attract guests to this day. This is still a pretty high-class place. From what I could tell, a night could cost you around $500, and it makes sense since it's such a famous place and, you know, the rooms are actually very, very nice looking. I suggest you go look at their website because dang, those rooms are really pretty. And some of them are themed too, like they're named after different things, which I think is pretty fun. I love a themed hotel. It's just a good time. I don't know. There are also haunted tours and the Shining tours where you can kind of explore the Stanley Hotel without staying there. Well, guys, that is all I have for you today. I just kind of wanted to take a minute and talk about the Stanley Hotel because maybe it was obvious to you guys, but I actually really learned a lot. Like, I knew The Shining had to be based off a real hotel because it just had to be. but the fact that it just has such a rich history and like everything about it is so interesting, I just had to take a second to talk to you guys about it today. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, you can like, you can subscribe, or you don't have to do anything. You don't have to do anything at all. That's totally fine too. I just hope that you guys enjoyed the video. I hope that you all are having a wonderful summer. I again thank you so very much for being patient with me during my clinical rotations. I'm finally done, so expect to have more content coming your way. If you have any suggestions of things you want me to talk about, I am totally down to research anything really, so let me know. Anyway, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Keep being the bad bitches that you are. Bye guys.